everyone, welcome to another episode of the Lounge Podcast, episode 17. Today I got with me Kite and Sean and Lester. Hey, you guys can say hi. Hey, yeah. So, today actually this one we're doing today is one that you chose, isn't it? I believe, Lester, about the 5-man band.
I think it was specifically like probably not 5-man, but like specifically like parties.
Okay, yeah.
All
All right.
parties.
Yeah. No, I totally understand it. Yeah. Was it you wanted to pose it as a question, right? Because I can't remember. I've written down as a question like 5-man bands is like. What do you think of them? Are they like? Do you think they're good, bad, or whatever? Was that how you posed it as, or?
Good question. Let me find it. This is probably. Wow, this is actually quite the start.
Oh no worries. Now if either way, I just think I just. Ask
Yeah, here it is. It's
okay,
like the importance of them in an adventure with dynamic and their roles. That's how I put it. Okay, now so basically, anyone who's known me for like a good length of time, one thing of the things I like literally always write about in all my works is sort of about this sort of band of heroes sort of forming and sort of combating what's out there. And it's something like that like relates a lot to me like from my childhood. Like I've always leaned into these stories. Like most of my gaming childhood has been like JRPGs. And sort of these bands of sort of heroes, and sort of like forming like either like partnerships, either through choice, like or literally just thrown together and just stick together throughout. And I've always found them, and I'll be honest, like these are some of like the main sort of story beats of like any sort of story that I always enjoy. Just sort of the I know, like the friendship that forms between this group, sort of the banter between them, the hard times, the low times, the times where they're nearly pulled apart. Yeah, I just think it's like a really good topic, overall topic, because essentially, like if you're writing like a wide-sprung adventure, like which I'm doing. And I think it's like always, it's one thing that's important is to just get sort of the dynamic right, because another thing, if you've known me for any good length of time, I have constantly bemoaned most tropes of anime, specifically harem parties.
Oh yeah.
Because because like I think one important thing for like any dynamic is sort of for each party to have like an definitive role, and JRPGs in JRPGs, which a lot of these stories are based on, you have your healer, you have your tank, you have your DPS or DPSs. Sort of my issue with a lot of them is like outside of that, there's nothing left to them other than either them having almost no personality or personality in specific places, and then just them fawning over the protagonist, who usually is the solution to all of life's problems.
Yeah.
And if you know me for any loads of time, that is something I particularly hate, because I prefer it when it's sort of like a balanced dynamic. So, for example, one of my favorite examples is the Straw Hat Crew. Because if you break them down, every single member of that crew has a role. Like, Luffy, like, for all his faults, is the captain. Sora's the first mate. Nami's the navigator. Usopp is the sniper. Sanji's the cook. Chopper is the doctor. Robin sort of acts more like her, more or less like archaeologist, but sort of the sort of their advisor as well. Then you have Frankie, the shipwright, Brooke, the musician, and then their latest edition, Jinbei, the helmsman. So like even though you can pretty much say all the Straw Hat needs is just Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and like in recent editions of Junpei.
Yeah.
In a fight, yes,
Yeah.
but they're still like very grueling. They're
In
still
everything
very grueling
else,
fights.
yeah.
But
But in
everything
everything
else,
else, they would
even like Luffy himself says, I cannot navigate. Like, and pretty much the entire crew would be stuck if they didn't have someone like Nami
yeah.
to sort of go. So it's like less about just overall power and more kind of the roles they have, and then also just the sort of like almost like interlocking friendship they have, where they will trust each other with their back. They will argue constantly. Zoro and Sanji in particular. But when shit gets serious, they know that they have each other's back.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I think that's one of the main big core things about the five man band is that mix of they all have a role that plot wise and story wise makes sense and makes them stand out. They're not all just like they're not all Luffies, you know what I mean? They're not all
And they're not all Luffy's.
yeah. I mean, God forbid. And it's so plot wise and progression wise, they all have their place and all have there's something that they cover the other characters back. So already from the structure, you can see why they would work as a team in that sense. But then even beyond that, with their characters themselves and how their dynamics and how they mix with each other, I think that's what makes the like that kind of like the team dynamic so appealing. It's kind of like the was it the
Yeah, sort of like
you're
the
stronger than the sum of your
unsung
parts.
trust. Yeah, sort of like the unsung trust, because even like bands where they do nothing but constantly bicker, there is still that underlying trust. I think my other favorite example is the Samurai Shampoo,
Oh
Mugen, and Jin.
yeah.
These two like literally act like they all three of them hate each other all throughout their journey. And then there was I think one of my favorite moments is sort of when Mugen just finally has enough and just demands for you to tell them why are you taking us from Edo to Nagasaki to find the samurai who smells of sunflowers, which ultimately broke them up. And then they were sort of forced back together due to I think they were hunted by assassins, where Mugen then just brought it up again and just asked, "Is it revenge?" And then Fu just said yes. She didn't say anything else about it. And then they just continued on. Like, they still bickered throughout the remainder of the episodes, but they continued on. They never
didn't
brought it up
expand each
again.
other sort of thing. Yeah, like there was that kind
Yeah,
of
so like even though they constantly act like they despise each other, and even like another example, like Bebop, the crew of the Bebop, they constantly are at each other's throats, particularly Faye. Then you have sort of the moment where, like, near the final episode, where both Faye, Ed, and Ion leaves, and it sort of takes a while for the Spike and I can't believe I forgot the other Jet to
Jet,
sort of realize, oh, they're gone.
They're not coming back, sort of thing. Yeah.
And then they just eat in silence and just kind of just realizing.
Yeah, I think.
Now what?
Yeah, no, yeah. When you mentioned that as well, I think that's like me personally as well. Like, it's cool when you have a team that works really well and they're really close and everything. But if there's not like, I think that whole bickering or that whole banter helps build that.
Yeah,
sense
exactly.
of this is a real friendship. They're not just happenstance. They're not like colleagues just trying to be nice to each other. You know what I mean? Like these are people who are genuinely comfortable with being with each other, flaws and all. And yeah, so it does when they bicker and stuff. It's like it, but they can still come together with each other. It feels really nice. But then when they do fall apart, it's kind of it does feel quite kind of sad.
Yeah,
I don't know. My take on the five-man team. Yeah, honestly, I think it's because it's such a good way of having a team that one, they have a goal and they have things they help cover each other's weaknesses, which then helps build their bond in them situations anyways. And then also just the dynamics they can have, the funny banter they can have, the the happy times, the sad times they can have. I think that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, I think yeah, I guess like my with my story, I noticed I have this not have well, I guess it's a habit, but I've noticed I've done a thing, but it makes sense in my world where it's not. I don't think it's too deep deal, but like where a lot of the characters, the team that I had, they came in twos because they came in pairs, sort of thing. Like Andrew and Natalie were together at the
Oh
beginning.
yeah, now that you mention it,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they're together, and then they meet Sophie and Flynn because they were together already, and then Sari and Mai, and yeah, so because they already had a bond with each other, there's that dynamic between them, and then there's dynamic that they start to have with the others, um, which I know it's just like quite interesting. But I think it also makes sense because in my world, obviously they traveled around the world as demons. There's all sorts of things that can attack them. It'll be kind of like there are a few powerhouses that go around traveling alone. You could do it alone, but I mean, it's safer together. And then minimum two is, what I mean, you can cover each other
Yeah,
while
like
sleeping. So
two, you've at least got someone to watch your back.
exactly, yeah. So I think that's how that kind of fell in place. But I know I didn't really catch on that I did it until like a couple of years in. I thought, oh, okay,
Yeah, I think I
interesting. That
wouldn't
makes
have
sense.
picked up on that unless you pointed it out.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. As they come together as a team, yeah, I do say that they have definitely a dynamic. Not the typical because I guess this overall this the main group I have is six. It's not like a 5-man band, but I guess it's more we're talking about teams here, so it works in that sense. Yeah, I definitely
Mm.
say there's a dynamic I like I say like obviously Sophie I say she's more kind of in the role of like like Gandalf, but younger I guess. So and yeah, because she's meant to be like the old more she's the out of the amongst them she's like the more older wiser one, and
Mm.
yeah, and Natalie I guess she's the yeah I think over not it has I don't think I've shown it now, but she's like I guess more the leader,
Yeah,
but
she's sort of the
but she kind of
one
does
who's
her
sort
own
of
thing. Like, and she's not like going around like giving orders and stuff. It's kind of like
yeah, but
she
she's
kind of
sort of the one who sort of grounds, like particularly Natalie, who acts like
mm.
a loose cannon.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She helps kind of like ground her
Mm.
definitely, and she's I guess Natalie is in a way like she like a lot of them kind of they come together for whatever like circumstances, but they kind of stay together because of Natalie. But I wouldn't say she's the heart. I say more so Maya's the heart, which is well,
Yeah,
I didn't get too deep into it, but you probably can see that I think because
yeah,
she's kind of happy go lucky,
yeah.
but I don't know she's really like she's not the smartest in terms of like I guess I don't know how to explain it like yeah
Mm.
she don't on the surface she don't seem like the smartest, but when it comes to emotional intelligence it's kind of really up there because she'll
Yeah.
catch on to stuff before the others. I don't think I've shown that too much in last
Mm.
months, but yeah. So yeah, there's definitely a dynamic, and I remember doing that before I looked at like 5-man bands and stuff. So
Mm.
I just think it's one of the things where obviously it's by stuff we watch and be inspired by and everything, but
Mm.
yeah, it's
Yeah, you
definitely
sort of
interesting.
end up just sort of like putting your own spin on it.
Yeah, that's it.
I
That's
think,
literally
yeah, because in my case, I've got like a fairly large party, and they're all sort of more banded around Alyssa, who,
it.
at least for the most part, like acts like she doesn't have a clue what she's doing, and but she also has like people around her she knows to sort of make up for that. So one thing like she has going for like she goes for like particularly where she is now in like Sora.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, learn more like she will like
I guess
to
trust on her
try to do
friends
the
more
right
so.
thing
Oh, okay,
and
yeah. Trust in herself.
trust in like her own to act more on her own initiative to try and prevent more disasters. And it's sort of like and at that stage like she sort of like built up a lot uh like a lot of like unspoken loyalty with her own friends like even though like she was literally getting involved in affairs that literally had nothing to do with them. Like, with the exception of one, they all, who was sort of the sort of one of the guest characters, all of them like just say nodded and say, all right, well, then wait there. Well, we'll try to make your way over to you, and then we can think about what to do next. And then and then the dynamic you've got mostly like I've looking at it. I've got literally 3 shonen protagonists in my party.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, like Max, Yuki, and Roger. Sort of, Natsu, I'd say Ichigo / Zoro, and then a Gon. And then sort of tempered by, I think, Melvin, who's more grounded. Then sort of more the man who sort of acts more like the voice of reason, Cliff.
Yeah, he's more
Who,
like he's more the general adult.
Particularly after playing like Yakuza, I've taken a lot more lessons on how to write someone like him. And then you have Nell, who's kind of just sort of lurks in the background and sort of keeps more or less does
kind of deals with the issues in the shadows. I think I'd say she's kind of like
does what the others, because she doesn't have much of the sort of moral compass that the others have. She's more willing to do what none of the others would be willing to do.
Yeah,
Does that make sense? So that's sort of dynamic where everyone sort of covers each other in terms of what they can and what they can't bring.
I totally see that. No, it's actually because I thought in my head, but I didn't really put it like notice it in a way where you said like there's like 3 protagonists, like shonen protagonists. It's like you got 3 different types of protagonists. Like the moment you mentioned that, I literally thought about the film. Oh yep, I can see it now. But before then, it's thing, which is funny then because Lisa is more. Actually, Lisa's more like the normal girl who went to Narnia. In a way, innit, when you get down to it.
Yeah, because I can see that sort of from like stuff I grew up when I was a child. I think I've sort of said like Power Rangers was a pretty big inspiration. And sort of, the ordinary person just being thrust, like not the, isekai pieces of bread. Someone who is an actual person, and then like how would like a normal person react to basically something like basically just ends up in a fantasy world? Are they gonna try to see like what kind of systems they got? No, like I think in Liz's case, she was just mostly acted out of denial, saying, "No, this has got to be a dream," and sort of began to sort of embrace that sort of living a dream until reality hit her very hard. But then again, like when it did, she had people around her that propped her back up.
Oh yeah.
And these were people who had gone through like their own, even like the very ones that are younger than her, had all gone through their own personal hell.
Yeah, they seen some stuff. Yeah, it's good way of putting it, because what I did notice is with like Elisa, like she makes me like this ordinary girl, and she's been frustrated. The thing, what I find interesting as well is like because deep down as well, I think what kind of makes her kind of like go along with stuff, although she's kind of like feeling totally out of her depth, is she's seen books and stuff, and she's a big fan of like these kind of stories about like heroes and stuff.
Yeah, she grew up on like comic books and stuff.
Yeah, so although she kind of like in this world and it's all crazy, I can
she's I could
totally see
like
why
she's sort of got her own idea of what a hero is, and ultimately, like where she is now, she learned a very hard way that it doesn't always feel you don't always feel great by trying to do the right thing, but sort of she ends up being compelled to just do what she feels is right, even if it is like in like their current case almost insurmountable and literally fighting an entire world.
Nah, that's what you're saying. Yeah, actually, now funny. I remember we in the club we kind of, because I think my character as well had a whole thing where she wanted to like do like something heroic, but then tragedy hit her, and now she's kind of coming through like a whole revenge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I'd say like Natalie's, they're similar, but the case that Natalie's had the glass shatter And in a even worse way. So she sort of has. Yeah. So one thing I found like interesting when we did that collab is just how these two like really bounced off each other. With Natalie being more like sort of grounded and pretty much.
I think she's grounded. I think how I would try to describe it is like, especially the times we chose to make them do go through the collab. It was like she I won't see too much for the thing because I guess you don't want to get too much spoilers, too deep in the spoilers. But like she came off a really really big event, like really pivoted event for like you said, like she had a glass shattered very recently for her by that point. I guess by the point the arc kind of rounded up where she was on the way to recovery, but she still had that sort of like the glass shattered, whereas Knightley was coming in from like her story is kind of her trying to climb back up from what she's been through. And I think from what I understand about how your story's going, it's her kind of, because she was a normal girl before this, and it's her kind of going deeper into this world. So I felt like at the time, especially when we were writing them, they were literally crossing paths on their arcs, where where at least it's going deeper in, whereas Natalie is kind of like finding her balance and not trying to see everything as, just, I don't know, revenge and go after these people. So I felt like I think it was really interesting, like kind of when we did that, because it was like that's how I pictured it when I was going through it. But yeah, no, it's really good. I think so with like fireman bands or just teams in general, like there's the whole dynamic of bouncing off each other and like
the
stuff,
propping them up when
and the experience to go through.
Hi, sorry, I think that.
So it's cutting off a little bit. I can't hear you. So what do you say? What do you say there? Say that one more time. Hello? Oh, I think my thing's cutting off a little bit.
You're.
Yeah, my connection's a bit bad. Hang on, I'm gonna change it. 1 second. This always happens. I should just go straight to my phone.
Okay.
Okay. Might be getting a little bit better, but I'm gonna change it right now.
Okay, you sound better now.
Yeah, I'm gonna change it anyway, so it might come off just in case, because it does do this. Yeah. 1 second.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, should be changed now. Alright, yeah.
Okay, you sound better.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know, off the top of my head, that's how I can mainly think about like five, like with like team dynamics and stuff. Sorry, Kai, was there anything you wanted to add? Sorry, I feel like maybe we kind of talked a bit.
Yeah, we kind of waffled a bit.
Yeah.
Well, as of right now, I don't really have a 5-man band in the traditional sense at the moment. I don't know if it's because of the scale of my story never really allows me to have all of the main cast rolled up into one area. But I do believe that it is an effective means to bring various personalities together. One of the reasons why Final Fantasy means so much to so many people is because this is a wide group of characters who probably would not have any reason to be interacting with each other on any meaningful way. Chances are they may more than likely be enemies, depending on where the story would put them. But yet they seem to be united in a cause to quote unquote save the world. Now, granted, I do feel while it is a very good vehicle to build off character relationships and give off this real good buddy cop vibe, I do feel that it does have a bit of a problem with it, with how it's normally framed. The thing about 5-man bands usually is that most of everyone's focus usually goes towards the same goal as the protagonist 9 times out of 10. It's very rare that you ever have these bands where everyone has their own individual reasons for going on this journey. Now, of course, we did talk about One Piece and how everyone has their own unique goal for joining Luffy and everything. And that, if you ask me, does help to ground and define the characters in their own, define motivations among other things. But I think what makes the difference between a good 5-man band or just a party dynamic really comes down to what ultimately a character is seeking. So to just kind of go back to another example, to go back to Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy VI is more than a 5-man band. That is what I'd like to call an ensemble cast, and that's typically what I like to do. I typically like to do ensemble casts that they each fit their own role in the story, and every now and again they will join hands with other characters with disparate backgrounds, among other things. Final Fantasy VI, every character has their own reason towards wanting to save the world. For Terra, it's this idea of coming to terms with what love and protection means. Because she spent a good chunk of the first of the game not understanding what this concept really means in the grand scheme until she saw the world end. When the world ended, that's when her protective instinct for these children and these people started to come through. She didn't understand it, but she wants to pursue it. She wants to understand what this feeling she has really means. For Sabin and Edgar, it was coming to terms with the fact that through thick and thin, the world may be burning, but they have each other. They have found solace and peace with each other more together than they ever did apart. So instead of living a life completely separate with one another, they now want to live a life together beyond the struggles that the world has. And then, of course, without kind of listing down everyone's different reasonings, what I'm really getting at the heart of all of this is every character in a 5-man band, yes, they can work towards the unified dynamic, but I think and feel that we need to remember the individual aspects to these people, because if we lose that individuality, the 5-man band just becomes more of a collective idea rather than the characters individually being able to hold up their own personalities. Because what happens when the character leaves the party, for example? What happens when the character leaves the party? Does that character have enough on their own to keep to make us care? Like, do they have do we still care about them? And I'm gonna pass the mic to you for a sec, Nick, because I know I heard you wanted to say something. I just want to leave one more good example. Another example of this is, of course, that it's not really a 5-man band; it's more of a 4-man band. But I'm talking about the TMNT, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those four, no matter what series you watch, whether it is OG, 2003, Rise, or anything they're releasing nowadays, you're going to notice that the brothers have a unique dynamic among themselves. And yeah, some of the personalities will boil down to be the same things in each iteration, but what keeps us coming back is the different interpretations, as well as how we know the brothers would act in that moment. And when they separate from the group, we still know who they are as people. And it starts to worry us. Like, if the brothers are scattered, what happens then? What happens to them when they're not with their team? They're strong on their own, but we realize that their real strength comes when they're together. And their individual quirks and perks, that's what makes them who they are.
No, yeah, definitely totally agree with that. Yeah, I was actually just gonna add, also, I think the reason why it's better to have them have like their own goals and own motives, though, but despite that they still come together, it's not only it not only makes that relationship seem more tangible and real and more, more quality to it, but it also prevents them from being like, it almost feels like the difference between it feels like the difference between like an isekai protagonist with a bunch of harems and a thing. Two examples where it's just like they all, all the other characters are just satellites going around.
They're just there to with isekai parties, they're mainly just there to be horny.
There's the added thing.
I think that's probably very bad way to put it, but I cannot think of any other logical reason because they don't seem to do anything else.
Yeah, I think those ones. I think that's a very, very extreme example. Plus, with the added-on thing of the goal is just to be horny. I think what I mean is as well, that even putting aside like the harem side of things, if all the characters that are following the main characters all just for the same goal and they have no other like real, defining thing themselves or anything else going on themselves, it does
Yeah.
You lose what you can get out from
I
that
actually
dynamic.
I actually want to bring
yeah.
like a horror, because I actually have a horror example of why I particularly hate this sort of harem dynamic, and it is one of the few harems I've actually stomached to watch the more or less the end, and actually read at least 2 of the light novels, which is Strike for Blood. And my god, I hate that party so much. But my general problem is like, you sort of do have this guy who is the solution to all of life's problems.
Oh boy.
And then you have whatever the hell these girls are, because I struggle to call them characters. The girl Sayaka in particular is the worst. My problem, like, with them specifically is they don't feel like they're necessary. They just feel like they're there. And Sayaka in particular really just highlights how badly written these characters are.
Is she the main girl that's meant to be beside him?
No, it was the main girl was like Yukina. Yukina was the main girl.
Oh, cool.
And then you've got her tsundere friend Sayaka, who's supposed to hate men. And that seems to be resolved within the second book. And I was sort of just left after reading that second book saying, okay, so this is exactly how the anime played it out. I hated it in the anime. It's even worse reading it because because she has absolutely no other reason to be there. Like I won't say like the actual reasons for being there, because honestly, even for harems, it's pretty embarrassing.
I've heard.
Outside of that, like she is so horrendously irritating. I hate every time she's on screen because you just act because after that arc, she just acts tsundere for absolutely no logical reason.
Oh boy!
And it just grinds me.
No, yeah, I've heard about the show. I never watched. I never watched.
Example of how badly it can be done. But yeah, that's like Strike the Blood. Like Strike the Blood is a weird one for me because I always say it has some of the best world building. The problem is it's just wrapped around. It just has a harem that feels like it's just been crudely smashed into this for no logical reason, and then just a bunch of really uninteresting characters who sort of they have like all have their purpose, have some sort of purpose. So Yukina, for example, she's like a general spear maiden. She can use magic.
Okay.
Sayaka being like this archer, and then you have Asagi, who is sort of the hacker. But sort of outside these gimmicks, they don't really have any other reason for me to care about them. Like some of them just sort of leave for like their own personal reasons, but I'm like, okay, they're gone.
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care.
Don't care.
I mean, they'll be back. They'll be back at some point. So why should I? Why should? And the author certainly doesn't have. Author won't kill them for me. They won't. And annoyingly, they won't kill off Sayaka. Sorry, I keep picking on her, but I particularly hate her.
Yeah, I've whenever I heard about Strike the Blood, it's always been like nothing good. So yeah, I know very little about it.
Strike the Blood is something I would absolutely like. I would not recommend. I'd recommend just the book just for the world building, at least the first volume. Outside, but yeah, absolutely do not touch it.
That's interesting. It sounds like with at least from what I hear, and I don't know. I'm trying to put myself in the author's headspace and thought like how they done it, because it seemed like they had a good world. They did a really good world building.
Oh yeah,
and it even seems like like the team dynamics, like and what they do, like mechanically, probably looked like it had some sort of intentional function, but beyond that, it just fell apart. So
yeah, exactly. It's just the dynamic is there. It's functional, but it just feels like an afterthought. Like the main reason they're like each party member is there is not for the dynamic. The dynamic is just like the afterthought.
No,
And that,
yeah,
like it. And you go and have, obviously, like I know that's a very extreme example, but I think that's one that really grates on me a lot.
Oh, hey,
we have
Dawn.
someone
Oh,
else.
hey, how's it going?
Hi.
You made it.
Hiya. Yeah, it's been a while.
Good to see you, Don.
I finally made it to a podcast. Are you proud of me?
Let's go. Yeah, I'm proud. Very happy.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was just doing a very big rant on Strike the Blood.
Yeah.
Oh God, I couldn't even get through it. Every single time she was like, "No, senpai, it's our fight." I was like, "Oh God."
No, please don't.
It was actually the worst. Like I watched like 4 episodes of it, and I was like, "This is actually the worst thing I've ever listened
I'm
to."
so glad I never wasted my time on that trash.
No, literally. Watching 5 episodes was suffering enough. Anyone who's brave enough to put themselves through multiple seasons of absolute garbage, like, you actually deserve an award for that.
No, I
don't
You
know
got
why
way more
actually read
patience than I do.
Yeah, because trust me, I've read the light novel. That line is
Oh.
in that book.
Damn, I'm so sorry.
It's a weird one because it has the novel in particular has really some of the best world building I've read in a book. It just has because the point was sort of a party dynamic in Strike the Blood, and my argument there is that it's there, but it is a complete afterthought. And then you just have
that's a bit disappointing.
Irritating people in particular, and I've particularly been picking on Sayaka in particular because she is the one I absolutely hate the most. An example of just how bad it is.
She
Is that the girl who says just the senpai line? Is that her?
That's Yukina. It's the girl next.
Oh God, there's people worse than her.
Yes, there are. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, there is.
Jeez. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like Strike the Blood is like up there with just dog shit anime. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it sounds terrible, man. Like, but I don't know. Listen to you guys talk about it. It's very entertaining, so I'll take that as a W. But yeah, but
no, don't put yourself through it.
Yeah, no, I won't. I'm just saying it's much more entertaining listening to you talk about it. So in service for what you sacrificed, you've done. Thank you for your service, guys. Honestly, you are.
Yeah.
You know, my 5 episodes of service. That's actually kind of crazy. I lasted less time watching Strike the Blood than I did watch Mushoku Tensei, and that anime offends me infinitely more.
Oh wow!
So like that's kind of wild.
So it's really at the bottom of the pile. Then that's crazy.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. Actually, another anime I dropped before I dropped Mushoku Tensei is High School DD. I couldn't get through it. It was so cringe.
High School DxD. I couldn't. Yeah,
it's so cringe. The thing is that like.
Yeah, I cannot watch that.
I wanted to throw it out. What's the next topic after the 5-man band? I just wanted to see if
next one was about world building, like it's how much world building is too much world building, which actually was your topic, I believe, Dawn.
Yeah,
I got from you.
Yeah, I'm actually so upset. I've missed like all of the topics I proposed apart from this week.
Well, we have a good amount of time to talk about this one, and it's something that I've been thinking about myself. So I figured, hey, why not?
Yeah, okay, we can move on to that one. We did finish going through the 5-man bands. If there's nothing you want to say about that, Dawn, we could just straight move on to the next one.
Honestly, only thing I would say is that I don't think that. You know, like when people gender flip tropes and stuff like that? I honestly don't see it as like a sign of laziness. I love that shit so much. Like, I love it when they choose the tough guy or the smart guy. They make the smart guy like some really small nerd. And like the tough guy like some really big guy and stuff. I love it when someone just gender flips that shit and they're just like, no, small nerd is still a guy, but the big tough guy is this really big muscle chick, and she absolutely loves her small smart guy, and she's obsessed with him. I love that shit.
That is genius, actually.
Like it's one of my favorite things ever. I would just say that like people, I think that some people are a bit too fast to judge five-man bands and think, oh, it's always the girl is always the heart, which honestly, yeah, sometimes it can get a bit tiring. But at the same time, I kind of like, I know it sounds weird. I like having a token girl in the group because sometimes I hate it when I feel like I'm reading something and it feels like everyone who's important or has any role of any significance is a guy. So, firstly, I love it when people gender flip tropes, and I love when people make the
Mm.
heart of the group a girl and everyone else a guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little shit, but I love that shit. That's all I got to add.
Alright, no worries. Nah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
no
get
worries.
that. Nah, because I definitely see your point. Yeah, like flipping them around. It's just more interesting. Some do it and they do it like an It's not just a surface thing. Like, oh, we just flipped it and do nothing else. You actually make the character feel like it work. Like, you know, you put thought into how they are as a character in that role. Then I'm all for it, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
because
Yeah.
the idea of reversing the genders in this situation can lead to a very surface level analysis or understanding of how this dynamic can normally go. But there's a lot of potential. But there is a lot of raw potential that you can get when you want to flip these
Yeah,
tropes around, because you can
yeah,
actually play around with more expectations at that point.
true.
So it's like a lot of the tropes that you would see grounded with like the drunken man, or just the, well, not necessarily drunken man, but the drunk of the group, or the
Mm,
Han Solo of a group. You'd be
mm,
surprised how much mileage or how much interest you can get when you just flip the role.
mm,
Originally, I did have a bit of a space pirate king running around in one of my books.
mm,
Then I eventually got around to the point where I ended up flipping it to a space pirate queen.
mm,
The changes were subtle, and like I said, just doing a basic gender flip on these ideas by themselves doesn't really do much.
mm-hmm.
But when you kind of lean into the perception of how you'd expect female characters, or just female people, or just females in general, to behave in specific manners, you can actually get a lot more mileage out of it, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So while there might be a degree of folks wanting to kind of abolish the notion of gendered ideas or gendered roles, my thing on that at this point is, hey, for as long as they still exist, for as long as we're still living in this society where that is a thing, it just means that you have more to play with.
Yeah.
And the way how I
Mm.
see it, the more tools that you have to play with when you're writing a character, the better. And if those
Mm,
tools involves your audience's perspective, then you have a lot to work with. It might not be obvious as you write, but the more you think about your own conceptions on the matter, you're gonna find that this subject turns into more than just flip genders. It then
mm,
turns into a matter of playing with someone else's expectations, not subverting it mindlessly, mind you.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying it really it's a lot more engrossing than people realize, is what I'm getting at.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Just it's just it gives you a lot more to play with. I think even like a perfect example, like Toph from Avatar. She's meant to be like the tough guy,
Mhm,
right? But she's a chick. But it works.
Uh,
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
she's
Yeah,
I
yeah,
tiny
love
as
Toph.
well.
yeah, yeah. So it's
exactly.
really nice. It's really really cool subversion. Also, when you bring up like changing the gender of like a character for a certain role, I had kind of the same thing happen when I was doing like this arc I was doing in the book on book one. This new arc I had in there, where I had a character who was for a while, I was literally thinking, okay, should I make him like a boy or girl? Because although the leadership role is going to be the same, like what they're going to do is like for the most part on the macrocosm is not going to be too different. How he or she would interact with the characters in the story and in the world will be a little different. And I just remember I remember just flipping on the because they for them at that point, if everything else is equal, it just comes down to taste and whether it will work, or what would you like from like kind of from the whole interaction. So
Hmm.
because of that, I was kind of flipping in my head. Okay, should I make it a boy? Because I think the biggest thing for me, because that character knew Sophie, and they had a little history, and I knew like how they'll be with each other would be a bit of banter and that stuff. But whilst they kind of deal with some serious issue. So I was thinking, okay, well, the dynamic and how that'll be done with, they'll banter, but it'll be kind of different. The banter will be different. The vibe will be different depending on the gender. So yeah, definitely, it can be more than just surface level. I just flip them this, that is my big move, flipping them to you. So yeah, but yeah. Cool.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty interesting point to me. Sorry, I just wanted to ask like a little bit of a sub question to you guys, but it's closely related. But do you guys ever feel like you struggle to write female characters? Because I often find that not to be deep, obviously I'll use our favorite medium of anime as an example, but a lot of especially shonen anime have really poorly written female characters, and I often feel like a lot of male authors in particular often struggle to write female characters because they feel like they can't empathize with us. Do you guys ever feel like you struggle to write female characters, and if so, like why?
That is very, very interesting. Go on. Oh no, yeah, you can go.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
I'll be right
Given
back.
that I've literally got 3 female protagonists, I'd say not really, because I'll admit most of it's taken from like anime and TV, but I've never really thought much on gender as I'm sort of writing their dialogue. I'm just thinking, okay, what would they say, and then just go to it. Like, albeit I'm writing essentially a fantasy one, so I'm not exactly going for realism, but more just writing them to be them. Like, if that makes sense. That's probably the best I can describe it. Like, I definitely see it because I can't fully empathize with a woman, empathize with a woman because I'm a man. But that shouldn't stop me from writing female characters, and I'm doing it, and I'd rather do it in a way that feels like it's who they are and not like
what you want them to be or something like that, I guess you mean.
Yeah, what I want them to be, like specifically who they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, on my end, I don't know if it's necessarily a struggle with writing female characters for me, more so than it's just a question of, this is the character that I'm writing about. What are their goals? What are they doing? What exactly are they trying to accomplish? And what is their role within the story? Anytime I write a character, be they a one-off character or someone who has a great impact in the plot, those are the questions that I typically ask when I go in. So if I have an answer for each and every one of them, then what has to come next is playing the game of expectations and playing the game of perception on the end of the readers. The reason why we get this conversation about why some men can have difficulty writing female characters is because I feel they make the separation a lot more than even women might do on the subject.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, whenever you hear about Kishimoto and shonen writers saying that they have trouble writing women, I don't necessarily think it is a matter of writing women in general that's their problem. I think it's more of a problem of, well, what exactly is his character's role in the story? Because if there's one thing about Kishimoto's writing that is consistent, it's not just the women in his stories that have the problem. It's the fact that several characters have little to no relevance in specific art.
Oh yeah.
So because
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
True. It becomes the Naruto and Sasuke show like very soon after
Exactly.
Team 7, after like the tuning exams. That's true. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's actually
Like,
a shame that Konoha 11 get made irrelevant so quickly.
Yeah.
and it's really tragic because at the end of the day, when it comes to writing men or women, depending on what side of the gender spectrum that you're on, yes, you are likely going to encounter the fundamental issue of you're not necessarily a man or a woman yourself, so there's a good chance that you might not be able to fully comprehend the struggles of the other side. But I don't really think that's a fair point either. You might not be able to relate to the struggle of being a woman per se, especially in today's world. You might not be able to understand it or conceive it. But there is a way that you can understand it just by speaking with them and understanding where their experiences come from and what exactly informs these experiences. Now, depending on who you ask, it might come across as an imitation. Like, this is, the typical, oh, I know a man wrote this story. That perception. Yeah, but that stereotype kind of exists for a reason. Because...
Yeah, it does.
Oh, hold on just a moment. Hold on.
Right, no worries. Okay, I guess I can answer for me. Okay, so this is a really interesting one for me because, when I when I started writing this story, because I had like a branch story before. I think you've probably seen like my animation things I had before, and then when I started writing this particular story, it actually has the cast overall has more girls than boys. And I think for me, maybe it's just the pants for me, because I definitely know especially when I started writing, I'm definitely more of a pantser than a plotter. For me, I'm more interested by the things I don't fully understand, and I write to try to understand them, or try to to try to understand them. So
Yeah,
for
like
me,
if you ask,
go.
I just want to to pile on that for a sec, but that's pretty much the reason why I write myself. I try to write to make sense out of things and to make sense out of people.
Yeah.
So this means that you have to come to terms with the experiences that you've had with the two genders in this situation.
Yeah.
With the two sexes here. So a lot of that comes down to, listen, if you want to understand how these people live, you need to speak with them. If you want to understand how a bisexual person lives, how a trans person lives, you need to be able to engage with them on a human level. And then after that, you can try to put those feelings down to verse as best as you can. Now, of course, when before I got interrupted earlier, when someone knocked on my door, I did mention that there's a reason why the stereotype of, oh, I know a man wrote this exists. It really just comes down to how that man tends to interact with the women around him. And a lot of their experiences or lack thereof really starts to get mixed up with their own biases and perceptions. And let's be honest here, we all have biases and perceptions of the opposite sex. We all do. Like it's impossible not to. And you wouldn't be doing yourself any favors if you said you didn't, because we all have a bias in us somewhere. But it is just a matter of learning how to weave.
Just pick up any 50 Shades of Grey Twilight book and
exactly.
You know what I mean?
What you need to do at that point as a human being is you need to learn how to come to terms with that bias, while at the same time learning how to interweave it with how you write yourself. Because at that point, you're aware of your biases, but you are at the same time not allowing that to end up clouding the character's portrayal or turn them into a caricature. Because that's when you start to get the problem of, a horny man wrote this story or a horny woman wrote this story. The bias creeps in so much to the point where they're not even characters anymore; they're just caricatures.
Yeah. I think definitely knowing, being aware of biases is definitely half the battle. And then I think also what I like to do with anything is, like, when it comes to whether men and women and that stuff, always got to remember, like, we have a lot more in common than we don't. We are humans, for one. We breathe air. We bleed red. We have the same emotions. Okay, yeah, but then the devil's in details of how we differ with them. Then that's where. So start with what I like to think about the list of stuff we have in common. Then I work down from there. But I think a lot of people, especially the ones who struggle, and they're genuinely. I've seen people. I've talked to people personally who struggle with it to the point where they just didn't even continue writing. It's insane. And for me, I just felt like they come too much from the point. They came from the perspective of the differences. They kept thinking about the differences to the point where they just paralyzed themselves. So it's just like.
And the thing is, and what I wish I could tell those people, if you still have them in your friend circle, Nate, I would tell them, you have to remember something very interesting about philosophy. There's a school of philosophy that preaches that there is a part of the opposite sex inside of us. Like there is a fragment of femininity inside males, and masculinity within females. Like you know that whole yin and yang dynamic. You know how there is always a little white in the black and black in the white. That's acknowledging the fact that there is a little aspect of the opposite within everyone. And basically, that's why I believe in this philosophy of filling in our broken pieces. Because fundamentally, speaking, we are always looking for something to make us whole. So that's why we always pursue a romantic relationship with someone. Now, of course, in the literal sense, men and women are on the opposite spectrums, but yet we fill in a gap of understanding that we wouldn't have by ourselves. So if we're going by the classical definition, then the man has one thing and the woman has another, and then these pieces come together and they form a whole. So when you think about it like that, you have to think about you need to think about it like this. When you're writing a woman as a man, you shouldn't really go so knee deep into the fundamental differences between the sexes, because I'm going to tell you this all day every day. You are never going to be able to finish your story if that's what's scaring you. You need you want to portray things respectfully. Yes, you should. But fundamentally there is a gap that you are probably never going to cross.
Yeah.
You're probably never going to be able to cross that gap. So the most you can do at that point is just be respectful. That's the best you can do at this case.
Yeah,
Again, and to just the last point on this, like I mentioned before, the reason why I don't entirely buy the whole shonen mangakas having a fundamental problem with female characters really just boils down to just character relevance more than anything else.
Yeah,
I have to disagree with you on that point. I can't lie. Because even some male characters who genuinely are like irrelevant. Also, oh fuck! Sorry.
No, you're cool.
sorry. I was literally just fucking editing. I'm literally So you know that project that I sent into chat a while back?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you.
Sorry, I know this is the podcast, but yeah. So I'm literally like trying to edit part of it down, and I'm trying to move things from my notes document into my main summary document, which I know sounds like a big one, but anyway, because of that, I actually ended up deleting half of my arcs document just then, and it almost saved.
Oh fuck!
So I almost just cried myself to sleep there. So I don't mind.
Save.
Yeah. Oh.
Luckily, yeah. Anywho, sorry. One thing I would say is that I can't fully agree with the whole thing about the character relevance thing, because there are situations where characters are painfully relevant and still are written worse than characters who aren't as relevant as them. You know, like my number one example will be Fairy Tail, and I know this isn't the best example because writing
Lord,
brilliant. But I'm sorry, this series to me used to be peak when I was younger, so I'm gonna use it. So in Fairy Tail, one of the most important characters and what they do, the character who's actually telling most of the story is Lucy. Lucy is literally the most important character in Fairy Tail on the basis that she is the audience vehicle, and yet she is significantly worsely written than most of the male characters in the series, even though she is literally the most important. Ask most Fairy Tail fans who the main character of the series is. A lot of them will not be able to tell you if it's Lucy or Natsu. And that's fine. I don't think it's
9 times out of 10 I hear it's Natsu. I mean, for me, when I started, I knew it was Lucy when I was going in. And if you were to ask me right now, the thing is, due to the way how the manga ended up going, I'd be hard pressed to tell you if Lucy is even much of a factor in her own story anymore.
She is and she isn't, because of the fact that her being there changed the guild fundamentally. At the same time, she doesn't necessarily pull loads of punches a lot of the time. You know, she's not doing these amazing and crazy fights like Urza. She's not having this emotional conflict with Natsu like Gray. You know, she's not sitting there and is basically both the heart and also the fucking warrior of the group like Natsu is either. But at the same time, it's thanks to her that a lot of the guild works as a whole, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but you look at how the guild was in the past and how the guild is currently when she's there, and it's very different. But the dynamics feel friendlier. But that's aside from the point. I just think that a lot of the time, I do think that there is a habit, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I read a lot of stuff written by women, and I know that women can be just as bad as writing like male characters as men are writing female characters. I can tell you that because I've seen it. Because I don't know if you guys know of the genre, but there's otome isekai, which is
I am intimately familiar with otome.
Otome isekai is basically the idea of girls being isekai'd into either books, games, all sorts of stuff. It's just very specific type of isekai. But otome isekai, the one rule of it is basically just that it is genuinely female focused. 99.9% of the time you will have a female protagonist. You can find male protagonists, they're just really, really rare. And they're usually written as girl gets isekai'd into her favorite book somehow, usually, right? Or favorite ultimate game, right? So a lot of these have some of the worst written men I've ever read in one time. I love these stories, but some of the men in them are actually atrocious. And I mean, as in, some of them feel like blatant, just, I'm not saying, but fetishes. Some of them just feel like men who
Yeah,
have no
that
personality apart from abs.
that's
And
exactly what I meant about the biases earlier. How when
yeah,
a lot of your biases and a lot of your primal instincts and how you engage with the opposite sex starts to bleed into the work to that degree, yeah, that's when you get the caricature aspect of everything.
Yeah.
yeah. And you get like the characters who literally feel like it feels like you're reading some Kuma fanfic, but it turns out that this
Mhm.
person's actually published. And
And
it's
in
like, what the
all
hell am I reading? But
fairness,
I feel like it's just
there's nothing wrong with that kind of with having that kind of trashy entertainment anyway. I mean, I'm not going to be the person to judge you for it, but if you want me to be 100% honest on it, I'm going to tell you it's trash.
you know, fair enough. Fair enough. I think
I
there's just a
guess.
time and place for everything,
Yeah,
right? And like, I'm sorry,
as,
guys, it's
as,
gonna
as,
be a very
as,
unpopular take.
yeah, I was literally about to say, I guess even trash has a place. That's why it's called trash. So
Oh,
it's fine.
definitely.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Trash
definitely.
does
So,
have a place. Absolutely.
Like
I'm
everyone
actually,
even
this is
has
gonna
a
be
level of guilty pleasure garbage they always go back to. We
Hell,
love that shit.
This is
we
gonna sound
love
weird, but
it.
I've started to actually grow to like Twilight movie, not because it's good.
Oh, the
This is just-
Twilight movies are a brilliant
No, it's
train
peak.
wreck, my
It's
friend.
one of the
It's
most
peak, bro.
unintentionally hilarious movies I've ever seen.
They are so freaking bad. Listen, my thing is,
know.
if you want to engage with Twilight, please do not engage with it the way it wants to be. Please engage with it for what it actually is,
You
a
should not.
genuine mess.
yeah.
No, you should never engage with Twilight by taking it seriously. I'm
Yeah.
I'm more amazed people actually did take this trash seriously.
But you say this, but at the same time, it's teenage fiction.
Yeah, I was literally about to say.
I'm not trying to be deep, but like,
Yeah.
literally,
the thing
read
is-
90% of teenage fiction.
they're
It's
quite young.
not that great, and I
Hold
feel like
up.
not to be that person, but let's not lie. I feel like people wouldn't be shitting on Twilight as much if it wasn't written for a female audience. And I know that's going to be a hot take, but hear me out here.
Yep.
How many times do we have dog shit isekai anime, which are clearly written to be male fancies? No one will shit on them in the same way that they'll shit on things like Twilight, or they'll shit on things like Diabolic
I think
Lovers.
you have a point. You have a point on that one. Like I will not be the one to tell you that you're wrong about that. Like I said, a lot of this really just goes back to perceptions and biases that we all have. Like since we know that Twilight is
just don't pretend it's high art. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like don't pretend it's high art. Like I'm hard pressed to like I've already mentioned this many times before, but I have a very ugly bias against most isekai that comes out these days. I already have a very ugly bias towards it in general because for the same reasons that you're mentioning. So it really comes down to knowing full well that this isn't the best and trying to parade it like it's the best. At least I mean, from your perspective, if it is, that's cool. That's perfectly respectable. But you're never going to be able to convince most people who have already been driven away from this that it is peak stuff. Like you're never going to be able to convince me SAO or most isekai related stuff that comes out these days is peak, because I keep seeing the same problems, and the problems are there for a reason. They're there for a reason. These stories are kind of written kind of like on a factory chasing a trend basis. And you're going to catch the same problems every single time, to the point where complaining about it almost feels moot. And the thing is, if complaining about an inherent flaw within a lot of these stories becomes moot, that's how you know the entire genre has a problem.
But let's not lie, is that not like what anime is though at times? Like how many times have we watched anime and we've sat there and we'd be like, oh, this is so good, and then the token either pervert or random fan service happens, and we all sit there and we're like, oh, but then it's never going to change because it's successful.
because
it works. It sells. It sells. Yeah, exactly. And it feels rude complaining about it, but it works, and that's why it keeps happening.
I think overall there are more shows come out.
I love complaining about this stuff.
Yeah, it's fun to complain about. I think
I am British. It is my right to complain about things. And I love complaining about it.
Bitch away. We love to hear it.
We love to bitch and moan, but we should always remember to offer love and praise where we can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I love and praise so many things.
Oh,
Almost to the point of
absolutely.
toxicity, might I say.
Based.
Yeah, I think because I've said like ReZero is like I have trashed the isekai genre almost constantly, even though I'm technically writing one. I'm not afraid to
Based.
say ReZero is probably one of my favorite ones because it's decently written. It has none of the tropes I hate, and it has really well written characters, not just like female characters. Some of the male characters are like what was it, Julius are so well written, and also that butler guy. Oh, I love
He
Wait,
that
was
character.
Julius,
very
is
good
he the
stuff.
one with red hair?
He was the one with purple hair.
Purple hair. Sorry, not the guy
Who?
with red hair.
The
It's
guy
been
I
so long
forgot
since I've
the
seen him, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a minute.
but yeah, it was sort of he was the one who was a because I like it, and that was sort of what really made me like it because like that guy because he was the guy that really like railed on Subaru, but when he sort of met him again, he actually like said about what I'm very sorry about how I acted. That was that was immature and dishonorable of me as a knight to act like that, and I apologize. And he also like at the end of that arc really ended up respecting Subaru, and the two sort of gone. And there's another one like I haven't actually finished the second series. Like I've never gone back to it,
Season
but
2.
Oh,
Garfield.
do go back to it. It's actually fucking
Yeah,
peak.
Yeah, it's
Holy
like
shit.
yeah, you know the character
I finished it very
Garfield.
recently.
Him I actually ended up really liking.
Yeah. I also love his VA, so I'm like extremely biased towards him already.
Yeah. I'll just say this: I watch dubs, so it's
No!
probably gonna
Oh my god, no. ReZero Season 2 and sub is actually brilliant. I like,
yeah.
especially in part
Yeah,
2.
that's probably not something you're gonna change my mind. I've always naturally leaned towards that, mostly because like I can
Ah.
follow it a
I
bit more.
mean,
Like there are a few things I will watch sub, like JoJo. I will always watch sub, mostly so I can hear
Really?
what the actual fans
I,
are.
I,
'Cause,
I, I, I dabble in both. I mean, usually whatever one comes first, and then if
yeah,
I
and
like
also
it enough, I'll probably
Gintama.
watch it again in dub. So,
Yeah, I will.
but usually sub I would say
Oh,
most of the
actually
time.
never heard of people doing that.
I will lean
I
more
do that.
towards
I do that
dub.
sometimes myself. There's some cases where I will watch a favorite of mine in dub if I love the show enough. I will definitely do that for Lupin the Third, as I do tend to find the Lupin dubs are usually very, very good. I'm currently watching Lupin Part 6, and I'm probably going to be doing the same thing. Let's just say there was a recent death in the staff for Lupin. The voice actor for Jigen passed away, and it's one of those
Had to be
cases where,
replaced, right?
yeah, he had to be, and I can feel the difference. But the current actor for him is the same actor for Bato in the Japanese version of Ghost in the Shell. So when I heard it, I was like, "Hey, that's Bato!" I got used to it, and the longer I listen to him, the more I realize he's really emulating what Jigen used to sound like way back in the day. Because the reason why Jigen's voice sounds the way it did for the later Lupin dubs is because the voice actor was getting old, and you could hear it in his voice. So now that he's passed on, and now that we have a younger Jigen, and at least in their tone, it feels like a bit of a tonal whiplash of what you've gotten used to, and I imagine a lot of people will get that same whiplash when they go to listen to dubs. And if I'm being honest, chances are when it comes to JoJo, I will usually stick to sub. But I have met the English voice actor for Rohan, at least
Oh,
the
that's pretty
new
cool.
voice. Yeah, I've met him. He's a really cool guy, genuinely friendly. And I have a good friend who's trying to get into the English acting, into the English dubbing scene himself. So,
Nepo your way up.
yeah, dub gets a lot of flack. I get it, but it has a place, and it does
Yeah,
have a it does serve a
I've
purpose.
generally been a big fan of dub and supporter of dubs. I always think like it's an argument that shouldn't like it makes it more accessible. So, and I think like yeah, I know this is getting to like dubs versus subs, but I think it's just an argument that really should die. Like people will have their preferences. and you shouldn't like bemoan people for it.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
that reminds me.
Look, I wouldn't shit on someone for watching dub or anything. I think dub's fine. It's just
Mm.
I don't know. I think that
Yeah,
there's certain times where the dub performances are better, and other times where the sub performances are better. So, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah,
my biggest
yeah.
example would probably be FMA. FMAB, the
Brotherhood.
dub actors killed it. I'm sorry. I think the
Yeah.
dub actors genuinely did it
Yeah,
better.
that's actually what got me into anime. Like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is what got me into anime, and I
Oh,
watched
really?
that dub. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, I got into it.
Holy shit! You started high up. The tumble down
Yeah,
must have been brutal.
yeah. That
I
was you started peak,
very,
bro.
very late.
Yeah.
Well, like late-ish in life.
Nah, that's interesting because I think by
I've been watching
2009.
anime
Innit?
since I was like 3, so.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really interesting. Yeah.
So,
No.
let's see here. The world building topic. Want to jump on that?
Yeah, definitely. There was one thing because I was trying to finish. Up one thing I was to say about like regards to like female characters and how I write them, because like
Yeah, go
for
ahead.
me, yeah, just for
Hit it.
everyone, yeah, because for me, I remember that it was really funny because it was because of the shows I was watching and like like there was a lot of characters were really cool, but some of them like, that could have been done better. Like looking at you, Sakura, which made me feel okay. Okay,
Yep.
I wanna like it was amongst other things that were like even like just the idea. I was trying to like the stuff I liked, but I was trying to think of how can I do this differently because I've seen this so many times now. I'm getting a bit bored of it. So like even just the whole trope of the parents died, therefore the adventure starts. And stuff. I know. But yeah, like that's a lot of reason why I kind of started writing female characters, and it's actually funny now. I think it's reached a point now. And I didn't do it intentionally; it just kind of happens because I think I write when I write something, I like to write something and discover trying to understand what I'm writing and just trying to discover it as I go along. I think with male characters in my head, I feel like I can easily work out what how to make the character, how to make him interesting, and what their role will be quite easily. Whereas a female character, it just feels a bit more. It's like it's more untapped territory, as far as I'm concerned, because I've seen less of it done well. So I think that's what kind of keeps me to it. And I think I've noticed when I look back at it now, I probably have a bit more female characters than male, a little bit. So
Yep.
just coincident.
Balance,
yeah. So
balance is heavily
Pretty
skewed
fair
towards
to me,
women.
honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like my take on it. But yeah, we'll move on to the world building now. So like when is too much? Well, what is it? So like. How much world building is too much world building, basically.
Yeah. Can I start off this topic?
Yeah, I was literally about to say because since your topic, you can hit it off.
Okay, so I actually asked this because I actually genuinely needed help with it. So, long story short, I've been working on this project since about February of this year, and I have done a disturbing amount of world building to the point where I've actually probably have withheld quite a lot of progress on my own story writing.
Oh,
But I feel like I've done world building in a way that it actually helps me with consistency. So, I don't know. Have you guys all read what I've done?
I read it.
I've
Yeah.
read the summary. I haven't read the actual the actual story bit, but I've read all the summary, and I think
Right.
Yeah, it's just a summary.
I like what you've read. I like the actual lore of.
yeah, like
Yeah.
the bones of what you have is really compelling. I'm quite a fan of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, like literally.
Thank you, guys.
No, yeah, don't mention. Nah, yeah, I was just about to say, and it's really perfect. It's really interesting that I could perfectly see why you thought of this subject because, like, I can tell reading it, like,
because I remember
it's so
sort of like
it's so yeah. Yeah, we can't about talking before, but like the world building is like it's so deep and extensive that I'm like, damn, like there's no way like you had that all like you just wrote that top of your head. It felt so well put together. Like honestly, kudos, big time.
Thank you, because honest to God, there was so much fucking. So sorry, I'm gonna actually open up documents now. I'm opening up on my computer because I'm actually working on that. But I've got about God, how many things do I have now? Okay, if I ignore those 2, 3, 4, fuck, okay. Okay, so I have about 10 different documents based on different parts of lore on here. I've got character notes, profiles, I have storyboard, which I will be doing separately because I was thinking of storyboarding it in a similar way to either a webtoon or an actual like show. Anyway, aside from that, I've got a document for magic. I have a document for monsters, a massive master doc, religion, timeline, species and subgroups, world geography, maps and culture. I have these massive documents which have helped me a lot with staying consistent. But I've reached a point where I'm like, holy fuck, I actually feel like because of how much time I spent world building, I've gotten very little of my actual story done. So for example, my largest document right now that isn't the straight up me writing down arc points is I feel like it might be my species document. If not, it's my magic one. And species is currently at about, it won't fucking tell me. Okay. So species is at 10k, which is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just opening these just to check them as I'm going along.
Yeah, go ahead.
No worries.
I'm not bragging, by the way. This is actually filled with.
No,
It's like, oh,
I think it's good. Like, personally, like, I think just having, like, it's something I wish I did do, like, or at least like make notes, because I think I'm very open to saying, like, I've literally made up shit as I've went along for most of pretty much all my entirety of my arcs. I've only just recently started to just write things down to sort of, so not more like world building, but at least I can have some sort of reference. So honestly, I really do applaud anyone who can sort of literally do like a glossary of their entire world.
Yeah, I think
I honestly find it so much easier to do it this way because I'm really bad at remembering details. Because when I was younger, wait, actually, yeah, you guys, we used to be on Wattpad together, so y'all already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Back when I used to write my old fucking series of like fucking Insignia, right? When I used to do that, I used to pants it all the fucking way. And then because of that, there were so many inconsistencies. I remember going back and then reading things and like things that were like 2 paragraphs apart had contradictions. Like it was bad. So then I feel like I kind of overcompensated for that, and now I write too much for lore and stuff.
Yeah. I think regards to that, I think with because we kind of talked about like plotters and pantsers, this kind of goes into that sort of idea in it, like the person who sits down and like plots it all out, then goes for it, and then the pantsers. I like where that line, whether how much is too much. I say it depends on you, but I think one of the maybe signs you could say is a sign for you is when you feel like, oh, hey, is this too much? Then maybe you should listen to that thing. Because again, like it's good that you've done all the world building and everything, and you got that there, and that's definitely gonna help you along the way to writing. But I guess your end goal is you want to write in it. So so now that especially now that you feel like, oh, have I done too much world building? I'll just say trust your gut on that, and just probably like you could just probably switch gears and just do the continue the plotting on the side as you go along, because I done it I think I done it to the opposite. Like I always knew I wanted to kind of start with like a big world, and I've written some world building, but it always came off like the opposite way. Like I would write something in a chapter and think, okay, I probably should write some of these things down to remember it for later. So yeah, I think like where that line is depends on you, and ultimately I think another thing it depends on you, and if you feel like if you start thinking I might have done this too much, that might be a good sign. Also, I think just as well, if for example you wrote a big world but then you don't even have the will to write the story, that's like even extreme case, then I say then maybe it's like you've tipped too far one way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think it really depends on you. Oh, I can't even hear. Sorry, guys. Wait a minute. If you guys are talking, I can't hear anything. I guess you guys can hear me, because I see you guys going green. 1 second. What is going on? Oh, go on.
Wait, so you can't hear us?
Oh, I can hear you now. The thing came
Okay.
out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I was also gonna ask from the point of view of someone who's reading, like as a reader. Because personally, as a reader, I am kind of happy to consume a lot of world building. Like I kind of love it when authors write all of their own crazy shit and they have all of this weird world I can't imagine, and it's like really cool feeling like it comes to life.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, sometimes I feel like I'm overwhelming my readers with too much information. Don't you
I
like? Do
think
you guys struggle with that as well?
So I want to kind of throw my hat in this real quick. To kind of just address the previous topic of this. When it comes to world building and myself, I try to go with enough for the moment every now and again. There have been some moments where I've actually taken more time to really go into like writing like a borderline encyclopedia of how my world works, but I kind of came to a pretty grim realization a couple of years ago because I had a friend. She was way deeper into writing than I was at the time. She had like manuscripts upon manuscripts. But you ready for this? Manuscripts of world building documents, not manuscripts of an actual book, manuscripts of world building information. So the
Is she
story,
just a world builder?
yeah, she basically just had nothing but like world built documents, but nothing like an actual manuscript for the story yet. And she always complained about it because she always felt trapped. Because it's like I have all of these ideas and concepts, but I have like no execution yet. And it always depressed her. And I would be there to try to help her through the situation. And I really wish I knew what I knew now, because what I would have told her back then is basically if you notice that half the stuff that you're not writing in the manuscript is not going to appear in your book, that's probably a good sign that you might want to reel it in at some point, because there is world building is a rabbit hole, like fundamentally. Like being able to like plot several aspects of your world, it's a great thing to do, and it's something that I encourage you to do. But the thing is, if you notice that you're going to be writing a bunch of stuff that you know is not going to get addressed in your book, or you know you can't address at all, it probably isn't worth the rabbit hole that you're going down. Now you can still reference it, mind you. You should. You need to make that work go towards something. But you can't get to a point where you're doing so much of it to the point where it cripples you. Because when you have all of this world built stuff, there's a good chance that your reader is not going to be able to see all of it. They're likely never going to be able to see much of it. Like, I think the best way to describe it is like your book is like an iceberg, right? Your reader is only your reader is only able to see what is on top of it. Everything that is down below it, that's for you, the author, to know. And how much information gets exposed to the reader is going to be dependent on whether or not it's relevant to the scene. Because as much as I do love it when I get rich world building in the books that I read, there can be a point in time where I feel as though it's not really relevant to what I'm actually reading at the moment. It just kind of feels like an aside. Yeah, like an aside.
I've got like a manga that really, I think, really went too deep into this problem. And that's actually because we actually mentioned Kishimoto. It's actually his second series, Seven Samurai, that I really feel fell headlong into this problem, because most of like the chapters were just built on like the world building of like the samurai stuff, like key holders, princesses, and then the rest of the galaxy. To the point where I just got so bored reading this, and there's because like nothing else happened. It was just like what world building with that seemed to be going nowhere. It was only when I forgot the name, but it was the big bad appeared and destroyed a moon that the plot went forward. But then it was back to more world building.
Yeah. I think
which is like, so I think it's definitely like a weird balancing act, like, because I've on the other spectrum, like, it's a book I've actually read. It's one of because I'm very open saying I'm very bad at reading, mostly because of my concentration. But one of a book I've read recently though was the first of the Edge Chronicles, and I'd say that's like a really good example of balancing world building. So to give you context, it's based on the world of the Edge, where the book has illustrations and it shows all of the Edge of just being this land that just goes into like this big abyss. And it's got like multiple regions. So it's got like the city of Scantafrax, which is this floating rock in the sky with like which is anchored to the ground below. And then you've got the sort of wasteland called the Twilight Wood. And then beyond that is what's called the Deep Wood. The first book, which is known as... I'm very weird with this series because it was actually a series my mother used to read me. It did give me nightmares for very good reasons. But she actually began with the fourth book in the series, which is the beginning of the Twig Saga. And that is sort of based in the Deep Wood. But just like focusing on that, like I wouldn't have had any idea that that wasn't the beginning, because that section of the Edge Chronicles was just centered in that part of the woods. You never know. You don't need to, it never talks about the Twilight Wood because it's not relevant. It doesn't talk about Scantifrax because it's not relevant. It's just the sort of Twig getting lost in the deep woods and delving into a series of very unfortunate events. But there's clearly something below the surface. Like, the author knows more about the world than I do, but the rest of the world is not relevant to what's happening to Twig, because Twig barely knows what's the world around him. He's just going through this really horrible wood, almost lost, full of vicious things that can kill him. But the book is just solely focused on that experience. And then on the other end, the first book, actual book of the series, was the Quint Saga. That focuses on specifically the character Quint, with like the perspectives going to, in one case, Marius, who's relevant to the main plot. But it follows Quint sort of as a sky pirate, and it briefly explains. You get an idea. It doesn't like go too whole hog into what the sky pirates are, only that they sort of fly on ships that use that give you like the lore of the floating rocks that makes up the Edge. But then the rest of the plot is centered on the city of Scantifrax, which is basically the sort of academy that's built on top of the giant rock. And it just delves into the lore of that city. And specifically, it goes into the conflict between the Sky and Earth scholars. And then you get a brief summary of something that will happen in the Twig Saga, which is the way they keep Scantifrax from weighed down. Because they can't rely on just the chain to keep it connected to the ground. They need something else. But they just show briefly that ceremony, and that's it. It's not relevant until the Twig Saga. So it's more like you could have so I think you could have just like an encyclopedia of every detail of that world. Like, if anything, I would encourage it. It's something I wish I could do, as opposed to literally just writing it, making it up as I go along. I think the challenge is just to write like a narrative that just pick an area of that, characters that are based on that, and then just laser focus it on that specific narrative. You don't need to know, like, say it's like just like one character within a single city state. You don't need to know about what's going on in the other city states. You just need to, it just has to be because that'll just like it, because that other city states, they're irrelevant. It's just laser focus it on the here and now, what this character is going through, and just give them them enough to know that there is a broader world out there, but at least the information they need to sort of picture what this, say, city state looks like, their society, and like how they're how, like, say, like if they have technology. I think I mentioned this in like DMs. One of your cities uses like teleporting magic, and I was saying, if they have magic, how is that incorporated into their civilization? Do they use like magic-based technology? If that makes sense. So really, just try to sort of my overall, like, I know like I've been waffling a lot, but the general point of this is saying, if that having a glossary isn't a bad thing. You just need to figure out how to just laser focus that. You don't need to explain the whole history of the entire world. Just focus it on that specific moments that are relevant.
Because at the end of the day, I'm sure everyone would like a Silmarillion of lore all to themselves. I mean, and of course, you'd probably want to share in that lore, but you have to remember that you're still writing a story on top of it. Now, a part of that story is immersing your reader into that world, but if you're going to try to immerse them into the esoteric that isn't really at the heart of things, like you mentioned, James, it can really come across as distracting or if not wasted. It's sort of like when you're in the middle of a conversation, someone kind of interrupts and brings up a random obscure fact when the subject is so far and few between or even tangentially related, so that it just kind of slips back into our mind because we don't even remember it because it's not really relevant to what we're looking at the moment. It could be interesting and it's probably something vital, but the context of the scene just doesn't make it so at the time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you guys said. Is because when you have
We
like
appreciate
all the lore,
that.
I don't mention it, but
when
you have
long-winded.
when you have like a world building, all the lore and that stuff there, I think from what I see and everything, because I can see that being like we have this urge to. It's possible. I'm not sure. I can't say it's the case with you, but they could have this urge to want to kind of reveal a lot of it because you put all this effort into it and you have all these answers to these things and you want to kind of show the answer to these things. Where so I think definitely like, there was like Kai and Lester was saying like it definitely, and especially at the point it seemed like the amount of world building done, you probably could very easily just get into writing because that seems like that's your main goal. You want to write. But as you write as well, just trying to keep the world building lean and relevant to what you're doing. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. You written so you kind of could understand that. But I can just imagine there's a lot of ways you can do that. Like when you're writing, you can build intrigue to certain things and stuff. But again, you want to keep it lean, like to that person's point of view, to what they're currently dealing with, and any connections from there that are relevant to it, world building wise. But yeah, other than that, having all the information there is honestly like really good. Like so, in a lot of ways, especially if you're using it now to make your story, you can have a good leg up on like all the consistencies and stuff. And so yeah, definitely, it's definitely good. But it's just I think just. They're on the far opposite side of things. There is that trap of getting stuck into it, and so long as you avoided that and you're using it sparingly in the story to make the story work, then yeah, you'll be fine. Honestly.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate the advice because honestly, I have been struggling with this for a hot minute, especially with trying to. Okay, so currently I'm writing a tournament arc, right? Should have put that as a. I feel like I should add this as a question.
Sure.
Sorry, it might be like really bad because this is probably like a massive topic. So I'm writing a tournament arc right now, and I got a bunch of characters listed out already. So I'm just trying to look where I wrote all of this stuff down. My organizational skills are so amazing. Oh my god. Anyway, so I wrote down like loads of stuff about the characters who are competing and alongside characters who were introduced alongside them who haven't come up in previous arcs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in doing this, I feel like I'm not going to be able to give half of these characters the screen time that they deserve. Because I don't want them to all be explored in depth, but I want at least I want you to at least know of like at least a quarter of them to some extent. But I don't know how to show off their backstories without making it look incredibly inorganic. Like I don't want them to just randomly come up to someone and go, "Oh yeah, this is my whole backstory, by the way," just so that I can have someone know that I actually wrote this backstory. At the same time, I don't want them to act without seemingly no motivation. So I was just wondering, like, what could be some organic ways to try and have people open up and talk about their motivations to literally join a tournament where they can basically die? Very specific question, I know, but
yeah, probably more like I think in that case, I think it really is a case of show don't tell. So yeah, because tournament arcs are really difficult. Like you can, like I've seen enough of them to know that they are not the easiest things in the world, and I don't think I've even like conceived a tournament arc.
Yeah, I think it's tournament arcs are interesting because on execution, like the mechanical part of it is pretty cruise control, but to make it interesting and good, that's where you have to put in like extra work. So
yeah, I think
like there are I don't know.
I think a lot of it really is like.
Yeah.
Show don't tell. Like it is like from what I've seen, it is completely unavoidable that so many of these characters will just be on the wayside.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's also because like there are ways you can do like a tournament arc where obviously like a lot of like there'll be characters that are just inevitably just not good to have as much screen time, but I lost my train of thought now. Sorry, you guys go on. I'll get back. I'll
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
I think like like even like the like a hunter exam, like the Hunter x Hunter, the end of that, a lot of those characters you don't really know, like specifically the ones that survive it to like the final selection where only one of them would fail.
Yeah.
In that tournament. It's like which ended up being Killer because he literally killed someone. But even then, you don't really know a lot about who the rest of these people are. Like you don't know like why they're there. You don't know their motivations.
Which is
because,
interesting
like,
because
the story literally just centered it on Gon and the people around him.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well when you mention that because in the Hunter exams, you don't just see these characters in that tournament. You see them throughout the exam, but yet you can't say you know much about them, but it still works. So I think that kind of just goes to show that you don't have to.
Yeah, I think it's
worry,
it's like a case of show don't tell. Like you don't really want to.
Yeah, so I wouldn't see as see the fact that you're not gonna have a lot of characters fleshed out as a problem at all. If anything, I think few things. I was doing some research to do a tournament arc a couple of years back because like my stories, I was writing further in my story before I went to rewrite it, and I was getting close to some tournament thing. And I think I'll probably find some of the notes because I had some notes about it. But a few things they're saying is that a few things that I can see that work is actually establishing like a few factors. Like you can have like a main, like the main I guess it depends what kind of tournament we go through, but like imagine if this tournament, if the main character is gonna have an actual challenge, like a proper challenge in here, introduce that challenge very early on. Like show that this guy's a big, like this guy that this hero's gonna fight is a big deal because they totally destroy someone who seemed like they were pretty strong themselves. Especially bonus points, well at least in the thing, bonus points if it was like someone who was like the hero not only knew but like was that kind of a rival with. It's like, I'll see you in the finals, but then they get their asses totally kicked by this like the main bad guy. So there's definitely a lot of ways you can kind of like structure. I'll see if I can find my notes. There's definitely ways you can structure a tournament arc to make it work. But yeah, I think just don't feel like just because you can't flesh out a lot of characters that it's not going to work. You can get a lot, from that character in just the fight. You can get a vibe of them and who they are. Like you said, a lot of people that come in here and it's a fight to the death. So right off the gate, you already know a lot of these characters here. Whatever they're fighting for, they're willing to die for it. So they either must think they're really good, and half them must be at least really good, and you can make a lot of assumptions just based on that alone. So then it's just a matter of when you do have some of them fight for a short time, you show that in that short amount of time in a way that works. I think that's the main thing. I forgot what something else I was gonna say, but it's fine. I'll probably change the notes. That might be it.
So if I could interject as far as the tournament arc goes, I want to just preface this with I've never actually written one myself. I have partaken in a few, like be it the Dark Tournament or Dragon Ball Z, and all of the above. Yeah,
please don't say anything about
yeah.
Dark Tournament. I haven't watched Yu Hakusho yet.
Oh, no problem. I won't go into that, but I probably will use it as a bit of an example without going into any spoilers. So the thing about tournament arcs, on top of it being a bit of a exhibition of your character's abilities and their mettle, 9 times out of 10, what really gets people coming back to tournament arcs isn't just the bombast of the special moves and all that. I mean, that's part of it, but what really draws people to tournament arcs is just the soul of the characters, or just how these characters interact with each other. Their abilities clashing are one thing, but they're different philosophies that come headlong into each other like an oncoming crash. That's when things starts to get really interesting. So what you asked earlier was basically, how do we get these individual personalities and backstories going without it feeling heavy-handed? Like, that was the question that you asked, right?
Yeah, literally that.
Mm-hmm. So, depending on how this works, usually this is the time to play with POV shifts. This is usually time to start playing with those, because having a character just outright tell the opponent what they want out of life can come across as a bit more of more info dumpy more than anything else. So playing with POVs really starts to do a lot of the heavy lifting here, where you get to see where this character came from, what their life was like beforehand, and what it means now in their present. So once you establish how things look from their perspective, you can then go back to your main character's perspective. We already know what they want. We already know what they're here for. We're rooting for them. But now that we have seen the perspective of another person and their life, now we have a situation where the main character's goal is now threatening the goal of the other person. Whether or not this is a benevolent or malevolent goal, the fact remains that these two are obstacles to each other now. And how these characters interact with each other can be strengthened or diluted by how the other person feels about the other person's motivation. For example, let's say we have someone who's trying to find a home for his friends and family. He's joining this tournament because he wants to find a way to ensure that his friends will never have to live on the streets again. The main character, however, is instead pursuing a goal where they can protect their loved ones from a mafia who will gun them down if he doesn't take part of this tournament. Now we have a situation of, if the main character defeats this person, they're likely never going to be able to find their home. And if this opponent wins, the main character and his family, they're utterly screwed. So what you now have here, on top of the physical blows and powers bouncing off of each other, you now have a moral crisis between both of these characters. And this can get even worse when these people find out what is going on and what is motivating the other person. Now you have entered drama territory. Now you have a situation where both characters know what is at stake. So now this turns into a situation of, well, I know what you're here for, and you know what I'm here for. It's nothing personal, but I've got a family to think of, and you're in the way of that. So now what you have is a situation where now the audience knows, and now the main character knows. But how the main character finds out is now the real problem that you're having. Because now the audience knows, but how do we deliver it in a way in which it's organic for the main character? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. The main character hears about it in passing. They're able to hear about it in passing, like before the match even begins. And that's usually how this usually turns out. They tend to hear about this in passing. Or there's something in the middle of the battle that can give a hint as to what they're really fighting for. Like, to use the Dragon Ball example, Nam entered the tournament because his village was running low on water. There was basically a famine that was kind of like, it's not going away no matter what happens. Nature is completely screwing these people. He's made it clear that he's joining this tournament to bring water back home for his family. If memory serves, I think he mentions this when he's about to lose, before the second round of the match begins. Sometimes when people get desperate, they start mouthing off. Not necessarily for sympathy, but to remind themselves of what they're here for. Now, it might come across as a little bit info dumpy, but there is a point where you can justify it depending on where this fight is going. There's a point where you can probably justify it in the middle of something. But 9 times out of 10, what the method that I kind of prefer, it's when there's a subtle hint that the main character is able to pick up on, and when he mentions it, it triggers something in his opponent. Like maybe, why are you running around with a pendant in the middle of a tournament? It's gonna break. What's your deal? You can get a reaction out of the opponent like that. Now, not necessarily something where they need to start mouthing off in a backstory, but they can at least hint at something. And eventually, throughout the blows, something can reach the main character. Something can then reach the opponent, and somehow in the middle of this fight, that's already a conversation to begin with, we start to get more of a verbal conversation alongside it. But with all that word soup out of the way, what I think you need to focus on when it comes to this kind of thing, it really is just a matter of staging. You just have to stage it in a way in which the main character is finding out about each other's individual struggles, ends up feeling natural to what's happening. And I guarantee you, it's gonna make every encounter in a tournament mean that much more to everyone involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was checking some of my notes about it before because I think I was actually really close to doing the tournament arc at some point. So I'll definitely send you because it's definitely you guys definitely you covered like a good few points about what I have here. But yeah, it is like I said, it is structurally it's quite simple. You get a bunch of guys in the tournament and they fight, but there is a lot of like if you're exactly. I think one thing, if you're not careful, it could get really repetitive. So then it's the drama in between it, like you're saying, Kai, the drama between it, how you contextualize that, how you show that, switching POV, that's perfectly, honestly, really valid thing, because sometimes there's so many things which maybe the main character maybe just not going to be privy to, or it's probably sometimes it's good, like you can do it in a way where you do both, like where the character finds out something about about the character while they're fighting while in the battle, but the readers knew about it for a while, so it brings more tension to the fight that before the main character, the shoe drops for them. So there's a lot of ways you can make it interesting, but it can be the execution can be a bit tricky despite it being put into cruise control, because it's just battle after battle.
Because what makes tournament arcs come across as white noise to some people is that a lot of the combatants don't really have much going for them other than the powers that they have. And it is cool to see these powers interacting with each other, but I never really got into tournament arcs just because of that. I wanted to see these people fight mainly because I know where they're coming from. I know where they want to go. Like you're not just watching the Dark Tournament just for the sake of seeing Yusuke and company, kick all the ass. I mean, that is a huge part of it, don't get me wrong. It is really freaking cool. But it's because of the interpersonal drama that is forcing them to take part in it. And it's also the drama that is also forcing some of the competitors to join it, or just the fact that they don't see any other way to get themselves out of a bad situation. When you have all of that there, the fighting becomes a backdrop, and the interpersonal struggle becomes the center point. Like, it might seem a little bit counterintuitive because the tournament implies a physical altercation, and there are physical altercations, but the most underrated aspects of fighting is what's going on in someone's head. It's one of the most underappreciated or the most utilized aspects that most people just don't seem to think about when they're writing these things. I guess that's one of the reasons why my fight scenes come across the way they do. It's because I'm not necessarily just concerned about with the clashing by itself. I just like going into the characters' heads and just see how they think, how they feel, and how these sparks end up making a fire. The sparks are the conflicts between these characters, and the fire is just the clash that's happening outside. Yeah, that's that. If you ask me, that's the real beauty of a tournament arc. It's It's visually stunning, but it's mentally, it's also really compelling.
Yeah, no, true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Having
Yeah. Okay, that sounds pretty good to me, honestly. Because I'd definitely say that I think it's like trying to make this box for me. That's like the biggest struggle. So for example, I've got a lot. So I've got a lot of characters to be in this tournament. I will be honest, and because of the format of this tournament, the vast majority of them we see in the arena with the main character. But then there's actually three arenas in total.
Yeah.
Only one's in focus, the other two aren't, but the other two become important later. Um, but within that tournament of that main thing, I want to show pretty much every fight because I'm trying to create conflict and tensions between the fighters because some of these fighters know each other from before, some of them used to work with each other, and so on. But I feel like I feel like
It feels
I haven't
like
got.
it
I'm
feels
not
like the
saying it.
setup. The setup because I guess it's like like in each arena it's like a free for all with a lot of them fighting all together at once. Because that setup's a lot like
No.
Oh, okay. Just oh, okay.
So basically, what happens is that there's a preliminary round. In a preliminary round, it basically sorts out. So you know at the start of the Hunter exam, how you had a fuck ton of people who just tried to make their way there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the preliminary round is similar to. I.e., they all come to the city to celebrate this thing, this event that's happening. Oh, hey.
I hate that.
Hey, Echoes.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Hey, are you guys still in the podcast or if
Yeah, but you might as well join.
No, it's okay. If you guys are still in the podcast, I'll probably head out because I wasn't planning on participating because I came kind of late. So I was wondering if you guys were done or not.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
Oh, it's alright.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I could. I
mean,
be honest,
it's pretty much on the last legs.
Yeah. To be honest, I could wrap this up now because we came off both topics really at this point. We're talking tournament arcs.
Yeah.
I can actually wrap this up.
Yeah, to be honest.
Yeah. Alright, guys. So yeah, this has been the episode of The Lounge, episode 17. It was really good talk, guys. Yeah. So yeah, it's episode 17 of The Lounge podcast. Yeah. See you guys later, guys. Thank you. Bye.